Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Mike Bauman from Toledo Free Press and Toledo Sports Network. And basically what I want to do here is, I've been talking about this for a while with some of my cohorts, one of those being the lovely, awesome, I believe, still single, right, Mike? He's still single. Mike Jameson.
The lovely's good enough for me. That's good.
Mike Jameson, basically a little background about everything that we're doing here, you guys. I've had the privilege to work with some really cool dudes over the last, God, Mike, it's almost been 2 years now. Yeah. Got into communication and journalism when I was in college at the University of Toledo. I'm born and raised from Toledo, Ohio. If you don't know where that is, screw you. No, actually, a lot of people don't know
really?
where.
That's good.
A lot of people don't know where that is. But Toledo's a hard-working blue-collar town where basically the Detroit's our attic. We're the little brother of the Motor City, 45 minutes north. And a lot of hard-working people here, a lot of blue-collar people here. And writing's been something I've been passionate about since I was a little kid. Anything creative, really. Drawing, writing. I used to take art classes when I was a little kid for a little bit at the Toledo Museum of Art. That was one of my first passions, and always loved sports, always loved music. You get the drift. So I get to college, and my major is communication with a focus in journalism. I get some writing experience there for the student newspaper at University of Toledo, the Independent Collegian. And then I get out of school, right, and you think, I'm graduating, college is over, life is beginning. Well, the economy is a little tough, but I'm not somebody that's going to make excuses. You know, I wanted to get my hands dirty. I wanted to get my feet wet and get my sea legs underneath me a little bit. So I did some freelance work, had the opportunity to work in my hometown, and I really didn't know if I would be able to do that when I got out of college. I really thought I was going to have to go far away, but I was able to meet some really, really cool people, one of those being Mick Gonzalez, who works at the same hospital that I work at locally, and I found out that these guys were into broadcasting and had been doing some stuff for a really long time, and I was like, you know what, this is really cool. This is something that I want to get involved with. But at first I was extremely hesitant. I met with Mick in the cafeteria at the hospital, and he was talking to me about, we do local football, local high school football, local high school basketball. It's great, man. We'd love to have you. And I was so nervous that I basically kind of turned it down because I didn't really want to be on camera. I was petrified. I was worried I was going to get sick or pass out. Mike's laughing because I don't know.
The first day, I remember it.
So it got to be, this is September 2010 now. Mm-hmm. I'm out of college. The summer's over, and I emailed Mick. It had been a couple weeks into the football season. I was doing stuff for Toledo Free Press. Shout out to Michael Miller and everybody over there for giving me a shot to continue to write. And I emailed Mick, and I was like, hey, man, there's a couple games coming up, but, I remember my mom was like, Mike, you need to do this. I know you're nervous, but this could be a really good opportunity. You need to do this. And I was like, all right, So I actually discovered that I had a pair and decided, you know what, I'm going to go for this. And I emailed Mick Gonzalez, and he was like, you know what? He's like, screw it. He's like, we're doing a coach's show out here in Perrysburg. Just come on out and just come out there with us. We'll have fun with it. Don't be nervous. We'll just do it. So I just drove out to Perrysburg, and I meet the very tall, George Clooney-esque Mike Jameson.
Wow.
I meet Mike Jameson, and they start doing the coach's show. Mick starts talking, and then Mike just says, "Hey, you know what? Hold on. Just bring that guy in there. Just bring him in there." And that was literally how I got my start. They just threw me on camera. We did a coach's show. I was talking about highlights and games I didn't even do, and we made it work. And I did my first game the next week. We were out at Otsego.
We put you on the field. And I said, whenever you hear us coming to you, just say something that people want to know about. And you did. You nailed it.
And
we saw that in you, Mr. Mikey.
So it's been fun ever since, and I've been working with Mike Jameson and Mick Gonzalez and Steve Taylor and all our great production guys and camera guys over at Toledo Sports Network, and we've been doing our thing now for 2 years, trying to build a name for ourselves, but we also dabble into internet radio and radio shows locally. I think people respect us locally.
Yeah, I think we're getting ready too. I think you're gonna with Toledo Sports Network, you're gonna be hearing a lot more shows. I think it's time we start really concentrating on some internet shows. And Mike, you'll have your own show. I'm gonna have my own show. Maybe everybody gets together and does a show, but I want to have my own show where I get a half hour or an hour just talk about what I want to talk about. That's what the internet's all about, and that's why you're doing this. It works out great.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I started music, something I've always been passionate about, and I've been blessed with the opportunity to be at a paper that's really allowed me to kind of just say, whenever I have an idea, Miller's usually open to it. So it's been cool that I've been able to work in my hometown, stay close to my family, meet some great people, started doing music stories, because prior to that, I'd always done sports and stuff through college. So January 2010 was my first music story, and I love sports, but I love music as well, and it's been awesome. And I started thinking, you know what? I have these great interviews that I have the opportunity to do with some really cool people, local musicians, local artists, national musicians, national artists. I'm like, you know what? I need to get this out to people. The print is great, but what if people had an opportunity to hear the whole shebang? Because there's only so much I can say in 750 words. There's only so much I can put out there, and obviously, you get out, okay, this is when the show is. This is about the artist, and they give you great stuff, but there's so much other cool stuff that people don't really get to hear because I can't squeeze a 20-minute interview into a 700-word story all the time. So I had this idea to start this up, and because I'm a moron and I don't know how to work all the soundboarding stuff, whatever, I drove out here to Rossford, Ohio, and sat down with Mike, and Mike's been awesome enough to help me get this going. And that's really what this is about, you guys. This isn't about me. This isn't about, hey, check me out and look how awesome I am. This is really just about, journalism to me, and writing and broadcasting and communication in general. It's all about the shared human experience. And that was why I was able to get over all the nerves and stuff I had initially with broadcasting. And you always get those butterflies a little bit right before we get going. I'm sure even with all the years Mike's been doing this, with just a little bit of background about him. I mean, you started a radio show, what, Mike, when you were 12, 11, 6th, 7th grade?
11 years old, right out of my house. That's what started all this stuff.
And Mike's never really stopped. He's got a local show, Let's Fix Her Up. He's been doing a long time. Great Lakes Golf Today, since 94 or 95?
95, yeah.
1995, still going with our buddy Dave Truman, who I secretly think wants to fight me.
Yeah, I do. I think that's going to be one of the upcoming matches at the Huntington Center in November when we do the fight there.
Yeah.
By the way, we got another fight in November.
Do we? Oh, sweet. So yeah, Mike's been doing this for a super, super long time now, and he's just the great thing about it is when you meet people who are equally passionate about what they do as you are about what you do, that's what makes it all fun. And so the nerves that I had when I started broadcasting, I started getting on camera, went away almost initially because Mike and Mick and Steve Taylor, another broadcaster who's been working with these guys for a while, I consider them friends more than I consider them colleagues. And it's just, it's awesome to go out and do these games and see the people and just see how much it means to them. But also to work with guys who just love what they do. We do not make much doing this, and we're laughing. I mean, but because we love to do it. And so that's what this is about. This isn't about me. This isn't about, Mike Jameson. And this is about the shared human experience and connecting with people. And that's what's, to me, the most fun about doing these games. I mean, it's cool that we get to create memories for these kids, that they have videos from their high school days, and they have games, and, Mike does weddings, the whole nine. So that's what this is about connecting with people. So I want to do what I can to turn this thing into something big. I want local artists on here. I'd like to, as long as it's cool with the PR people that I talk to from the different bands, to make sure that we can get these interviews out to people so they can get it from every angle. They're going to get it in print. We're hitting you with radio. We're hitting you with internet. We're giving it all to you. So this is the first kickoff one. So now that you know a little bit about me, I want to shut the heck up and get right into it. This is Ray Luzier from Korn. He's their drummer. He's been with the band for several years now. For those of you out there who are Korn heads and been listening to the music for a long time, obviously, there's been a couple lineup changes in the band over the last couple of years now with David Silveria and obviously, being the former drummer, Brian Held Welch. If you haven't read his book or don't know his story, check it out. Obviously, as a Korn fan myself, when he left the band, a lot of people were wondering what was going to happen, but they've since been able to reconcile, and they're all still cool. They're all still friends now. He left the band when he got into drugs. He had a daughter that he needed to take care of, and he was getting hooked on some pretty heavy stuff, and some of the guys in the band didn't even know about it. And he left, found God, and has kind of been on a spiritual journey for about the last 7 years now. But Ray is a really cool guy. He's a fantastic drummer. I mean, you're talking about a Musicians Institute guy, a guy who's worked with several great musicians, talented musicians over the years before he got into Korn. So he really has, brought quite the track record to an already established band. And obviously these guys came out with The Path to Totality this year, and that record is just blowing people away. The dubstep stuff is something that a lot of people are starting to get into now, and they're bringing it in and fusing it with metal. This was just really a great interview with Ray. Just a really super cordial guy who was gracious enough to give me some of his time back before they got their spring tour dates started up. So this interview is actually from January of 2012, early in the year, that I did for a story for Toledo Free Press, because the first show of their tour was in Detroit. So I'm going to shut up. Here it is, Ray Luzier from Korn.
I mean, Korn's always been one of those bands ever since they came out back in '94 that really has sort of been able to stay ahead of the curve. And right now with this new dubstep record, you guys are getting a ton of great reviews. I mean, how does it feel to be part of something like this?
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, you always have that risk, especially if I've only been in the band 4.5 years now, but there's, a band that's been around that long, you always take risks on this, diehard fans not liking it, but then sometimes you gain new fans, by trying new experimentation. So I got an email from a 16-year-old girl right when the album came out saying, I don't know what a Korn is, but I love Skrillex, so I bought your new record. So that was really interesting that she was a Skrillex fan, but never heard of Korn, and so hey, there's a new fan right there. A lot of diehards are it took a little bit to warm up to it, but I'm getting, a lot of them are digging it now.
Is this the most different process in terms of how you've made a record? Because I read that this was made over the course of you guys being in Japan and kind of being everywhere. I mean, what was that like?
Yeah, it was definitely Korn 3. Remember, we were all in one little room. We took 3 months off the road. Actually focused on hey, we're gonna do a record. We're go ahead and do this. On this time, there's always, we never stop writing. There's a lot of songs that are just sitting around. It's kind of, we get inspired, have ideas. It's not like we just stop and do a record, but, we're always tracking songs. Jonathan has a studio on his bus, and in the Path to Totality form, we did, everything was so electronic and quite opposite than organic. We could use machines and, we use our laptops and Pro Tools and anything we had on the road. So Jonathan was collaborating with dubstep DJs over a year ago, and writing a lot of things. And a few of them, already had, I'd be the last guy on the record. I'd be, which is drums are usually first. So this time I'd go after, because I'd play along to these massive drum samples they had already existed, and because of that, you could do it anywhere. I mean, if you read the liner notes, John says, they did vocals here, and I did a cymbal take in Honolulu, Hawaii, and get away with that,
What's it like as a drummer being part of something like this where it is very electronic? I mean, is this the most that you've ever experienced or experimented in all your years of being a drummer?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of drummers, it would be a nightmare because they, I embrace the electronic world. It never, it's always been around. Everyone is saying, like, this is a new way. It never really left. I mean, the 80s, there was electronic music. It just takes different forms and shapes, most of the time, as I was asking Jonathan, just throw the gig and I'm playing the stuff live, and, because, Skrillex is really great at programming. A lot of these guys are really great drum programmers and bass and guitar as well. So, it was definitely a different turn, but I've always been a huge fan of, the Radiohead programming, the Marilyn Manson, Nine Inch Nails, like a lot of bands that use programming in their music. I actually love it because there's a reason it sounds that way, and on our record, the sounds are so massive. Like, I played on every song, but a lot of times the programming sounds took over, and sometimes all you hear is live cymbals, and that's okay, because that's what the song calls for, Technically, in retrospect, like, I'm a organic player. I love to play without, drum machines and all that, because we're all human, But in this case, I absolutely love every step of the way.
And you've had a chance now at a couple of shows to experiment with this live, right, and see how some of these new songs work?
Yeah, we did a little run before Christmas, and we definitely got to see, firsthand how this was going to work, and it's actually quite awesome. We have all these crazy video screens that go along with it, and we have, kind of do this little breakdown between, they have such a huge catalog now, it's hard to please everybody, so sometimes we're even doing medley things, and sometimes we're even doing, like, just trying to trade up the songs a little bit, because there's so many, but, of course, when you have a new record out, you have to play the new stuff, so we're actually doing 4 or 5 off of it. I'm not sure what this next one's going to consist of, but it's actually quite fun. Like, we do this little interlude thing where we stop, and I actually play the electronic kick and snare as opposed to the organic. So my drum tech actually switches out the acoustic snare, we put up the electric one, and the kick drum is triggered. And but I'm playing everything note for note. That's what I'm proud of. I mean, I'm not one of those guys that's gonna just sit there and air jam, especially live. It's not the style, So Jonathan presented us with this. He goes, "Don't worry, some of the program might be locked up and quantized on the record, but you're gonna play every note live." And I'm thinking that's awesome. So that was a big deal.
So is that the biggest difference in your kit with these live shows? Are the snare and the kick?
Yes, absolutely. That's actually the only thing that gets swapped out. The toms are left organic, and all the cymbal overheads are what they are. So, yeah, that's it. Those two.
You've played with a lot of different artists over the years. I mean, when you got time around to auditioning for Korn, what attracted you about being part of them at that time? And obviously the growth that you guys have experienced even in the last 4 years. Korn 3 was kind of more a retro record to some of their earlier stuff, and obviously this one is another album where they, Korn has really experimented and tried to take things to a different level. But what attracted you initially about joining Korn, Ray?
Well, I've always been a working drummer. I've been fortunate enough to work professionally the last 23 years out here in LA, and when I set out, when I moved out here, my biggest goal was to get an original band that got signed, got a deal, hit the road, and hopefully was successful, and gained fans, following, stuff like that. And I was in so many bands out here. I don't know how many original ventures, and that it's hard to get off the ground, you know. So I ended up started joining. I still write a lot of music. I play guitar and bass, and I'm still constantly writing in my home studio, and it's a great feeling to do that, you know. But I found like to my most success was when I joined an already established band. That was the path I chose. It was like I didn't really choose it. I just kind of ended up there. I started getting national gigs like Jakey Lee, the Ozzy Osbourne guitar player, was my first official tour. That was back in '94, and I was finally on a bus and playing Ozzy and Badlands songs. We had a couple originals, and then after that, Arcade from Stephen Pearcy's band that followed Rat, and then it led me to the David Lee Roth gig, which was one of my biggest successes, because that was a solid 8 years of touring the globe and playing with one of the greatest frontmen of all time. You know, he's definitely changed everything since he came out, and it was just awesome. I mean, practicing Hot for Teacher in your bedroom in West Newton, Pennsylvania, and actually opening with it every night with David Lee Roth was pretty surreal, you know. So, and then that led to, I eventually couldn't get that much further in Dave's band after 8 years, and we weren't really going anywhere growing as a musician. I wanted to do other things, and I got the Army of Anyone gig with Robert Dean DeLeo from Stone Temple Pilots and Richard from Filter, and they saw me play one of those NAMM shows in LA, and with Billy Sheehan, and the next day I got that gig, and that was a short-lived band. We had the same management. Korn and Army of Anyone had the same management, and I was always a huge Korn fan from back in the day, and they said, hey, they're going through a lot of drummers, you know, Terry Bozzio and Brooks Rackman playing on the record. They had Joey from Slipknot filling in. Mike Borden was filling in for David before he left. There was all these just inconsistencies drummer-wise, and I was wondering what was going on, and management called me up and says, hey, they really dig that Army of Anyone record, and I'm like, wow, it'd be awesome to be in that band. You know, and then within a month, it was weird. Stone Temple Pilots got back together. Richard joined Filter, and I joined Korn, like literally within a month of the Army of Anyone disbandment. So it was quite amazing. You know, that was pretty unexpected. If you told me 10 years ago I'd be in this band for 4.5 years, I would have laughed at you.
And you guys have had quite the cycle, too. I mean, just with the last couple of years with Mayhem and everything, and even on this leg, after a few U.S. dates, you're going to be going back to Europe, right?
Yeah, definitely. And then there's South American talk after that, and it's weird. Last January, the manager goes, yeah, we're out on the road for a couple months, and we got home at Thanksgiving, so we're definitely not shy of the road. But we all have families now, so we like to take breaks and come back. You know, regroup every 4 or 5 weeks. We come back for a couple weeks just to touch home base, you know.
I mean, and you personally, I mean, even just talking about all the different people that you were with, you're also at the Musicians Institute. I mean, what's it like after all these years, just seeing all the differences in the music industry and stuff? I mean, the life of Korn, and also in your lifetime, and since you've been doing this, I mean, it's just changed so much. I mean, what does it take? I mean, Korn's already established, obviously, but for a lot of bands who are up and coming, what does it really take, you think, to try to really make a name for yourself these days?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's you know, when I do a lot of, clinics worldwide, and like you said, you mentioned MI, I taught there for 10 years off and on, around touring, and I always tell people never forget the reason you started playing, never forget the feeling you had, and listen to your heart, because I was just a dumb kid off the farm, in Pennsylvania, and I didn't know any better. I just knew how great it felt when I played drums, and you can really let the business kill that. I mean, the business is pretty rough these days. It's not like it used to be, and I just thought, hey, I'm going to practice so much and get so good, no one's going to tear me down, and that's really not the case. you got to educate yourself on the business, so I definitely say that to any up-and-comers out there. Have fun and play, but you got to get out there, and you definitely got to network. There's a lot of kids in small towns that play in front of 12 people on a Tuesday night, and they think that's a shameful gig, and it's really not. I mean, you'd be surprised. The talent scouts to prowl around in odd areas, So you just got to play, and be smart business-wise, too, and never forget that feeling, and never let people tell you that you can't do what you want to do and love to do,
With this record too, are you happy that you're in a band that isn't afraid to take a chance? Because Korn, a lot of people have kind of classified them as quote unquote new metal, but at the same time, each record has really been different, but at the same time kept their sound. With this electronic album, when you guys first started to get this idea presented that this is the direction you're going to go with this record, I mean, how on board were you with it, and are you happy that you're in a band that isn't afraid to sort of, challenge the status quo a little bit?
Yeah, it's actually awesome. I mean, I read an AC/DC article not long ago, and it was hilarious because they said, Angus, you guys have been accused of making the same record for the last 25 years. I forget the exact year. And he says, you're absolutely wrong. We've made the exact same record the last 27 years. Hilarious, because as big as AC/DC is, they're actually ripping on themselves for putting out the same record. So, and I'm a huge AC/DC fan, so it's like, I love the fact that, like, people want to grow as musicians, as musicians, and just not be afraid. I mean, Korn's, it's over 37 million record sales. I mean, that's proof right there. I mean, and let alone all the fans that keep coming up to shows going, wow, this is my first time I've ever seen them. I can't believe I haven't been here after the last 18, 19 years. So, but if, people always ask me, if I go buy one Korn record, when is it? I'm like, you can't do that. Because it's like, Untitled sounds nothing like See You on the Other Side, and Untouchable sounds nothing like Path of Totality and Korn 3. So it's just so different. But one thing's for sure, at the end of the day, it all has a Korn stamp on it. I mean, no one sounds like, the three remaining guys are so identifiable. Every time John sings one note, it's him. He could do a country record, it's John Davis, and Philly Monkey, the way they play their instruments, no one does that, like them. And how I fit in this mold is a pretty serious thing. It's not just like joining another band. You don't say, hey, I was in David Lee Roth and the Toledo brothers, and now I'm in Korn. It's not like that. You really got to get your head in it, and it's way more powerful than I thought, We did a 35 country tour in beginning of 2008, and we've never rehearsed. So my first rehearsal was in Dublin, Ireland, the first gig, and wow, it's like, talking about being scared and off to the races. But once you really get in it and realize what's going on, see their fan base, you're just like, wow, this is, music's more powerful than I thought.
I mean, and just to build on that too, the Korn fan base. I mean, after all the years that you've had in this now, I mean, how much do you feel like you are a part of this band and not just another piece? Because I got to imagine the fan response has been pretty good.
It's well, I'm a fan myself of tons of music, and I understand what it's like when someone leaves. I mean, we went out there, we were playing with, from Alice in Chains, The Journey. I mean, those guys got new singers. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, that's huge to me. I feel for those guys because I've been the drummer replacement in many, many bands, and it's like, there's always those diehard fans are gonna swear by the 5 core original members, and hey, that's great. I get it. I understand why. But there's also a thing of you got to accept change after a while. Bands are kind of like mini marriages in a 3, 4, or 5 different ways. You know what I mean? And some people accept the change, and some people don't. Most of the people that have the 5 original members tattooed on their arms are a little skeptical of me, of course, but a lot of them have been quite accepting, and I'm actually quite pleased. I get letters all the time, and some of the fan boards, I forget how many fan sites there are, but there's so many, and every once in a while I just go on them, and they're really quite supportive. But I get it, if you're a diehard original fan, but that. I saw that singer from Journey, and I was just like, this guy's pulling all these tunes off in front of 20,000 people, and they're screaming their heads off, and I was like, that's the biggest balls on the planet right there,
Yeah.
You can get away with drums, bass, and guitar. It's going to be different, obviously, but you can way more pull it off than a voice,
And one last thing, Ray, before I get you off the hot seat, and I really do appreciate you taking the time again today, man.
Well, sure.
What do you think this album can do for rock music moving forward? Because, you mentioned, electronic music and synthesizers and all that have been around, especially in the 80s with New Wave and everything, but this is really one of the first times, at least I remember in my lifetime, people really blending, electronic and having it being so heavy in the songs. I mean, what do you think this can do going forward?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's not a huge surprise that this ended up like this. I mean, there's always been little elements that's just cool about Korn. I mean, people call it new metal, whatever you want, but it's just Korn. I mean, there's no, you can't even call it metal in my eyes. I mean, it's just like it's what it is. I mean, how they play and how it came about, and how we are today is a whole different entity, and it's not a surprise to me, because if you listen back to the earlier albums, there's always been little elements of hip-hop and electronic stuff in there. This just went extreme because John, had this vision of like, hey, let's use this guy's Skrillex on a couple of songs, and that turned into Skrillex is introducing John to 12th Planet and Kill the Noise and all these other really famous dubstep artists, and next thing you know, I'm thinking like, wow, is he going to make a solo project? I didn't know what was going on at first, because he would just blast these songs backstage, and like, these are so massive, but I don't know if it sounds like Korn, but then once you go in the studio and embrace these crazy sounds that have never been made, you can't make those with guitars, you can't make them, it's the whole process, how they make these sounds, and it's so crazy how, like, Skrillex can sell out an arena in England for 25,000 people by himself. It's just how popular it got, and to be with that collaboration, I think it just fits so well, and having, to me, live, it's so much cooler, because you can hear the crunching guitars and everything, just, so much better, and the energy so much higher, and so it's not a surprise to me,
Well, Ray, thanks again, man. I really do appreciate it. It's been a privilege to talk to you today, and I hope the tour goes well.
All right, everybody, thank you for listening. That was Ray Luzier from Korn. Great guy. It was so awesome to get to talk to him. I grew up listening to those guys, and just super, super nice guys. It's always cool when you get to talk to people who are on that level. I mean, guy worked with David Lee Roth. I'm sure you're familiar with Army of Anyone. Before he got to Korn in 2007, did a lot of stuff over the years and really worked his ass off to get to that point. And so I hope people by now have accepted the man as the drummer that he is, which is a phenomenal drummer. He's not the other guy in Korn. He is part of Korn, and he's a big part of Korn. They're a great band. And remember, his last name is Luzier. I even kind of said Luzier. I even kind of added a little lisp, a little bit lisp there. And I hate when people butcher my last name. Ray Luzier, awesome guy from Korn. You can check him out at his website. I want to make sure I give Ray a plug at rayluzier.com, korn.com. Go there, check out their tour dates. They're going to be in the States this summer until the end of July, before they head overseas. And once again, if you haven't checked out The Path of Totality, folks, a phenomenal album, great record. I really think a lot of people are going to do what they've done in the past, which is kind of mimic Korn a little bit. There's been a lot of people who have taken their song formula and spun it over the years, but they really revolutionized heavy music back in '94 with their self-titled, and they're doing it again right now with the new dubstep record. So check it out. And make sure you check us out, ToledoSportsNetwork.com, ToledoFreePress.com, BaumansBreakdown.blogspot.com, which that's what this is. This is Bauman's Breakdown. This is the first installment of it, and we hope to bring more of it to you. Local stuff, national stuff. I want to give you guys as much as I can. I want to saturate your ears with my crap. But in all seriousness, though, it's a lot of fun doing this stuff, and it's all about the shared human experience, folks, and that's what we're bringing to you. So thank you for checking it out. And once again, keep an eye on us, ToledoSportsNetwork.com, ToledoFreePress.com. Type in my name, Mike Bauman, Bauman. Check out some of the stuff that I've been doing. If you want to give me feedback and tell me how crappy of a writer I am, I'm open to it. Good stuff, bad stuff. We just want feedback. We want to know you're checking us out. So thanks again, and stay tuned. This is the first installment of Bauman's Breakdown. Have a lovely, lovely day, folks.